Hey guys, PLV here, and today I will be showing you together with Nois how we made our latest track Behind My Eyes that we released last week on the Music Drop. Alright, so for this video, Nois will cover the vocals part of the song and I will take care of the instrumental part of the song. I will showing you a bit more in details how everything has been made and how we mixed everything together, so let's not wait any longer and let's start with Nois. Let's go!
Hey everyone, Nois here. So today I will show you how I mixed the vocals for Behind My Eyes. So about the vocals, there's three different parts on the track. The main one, which is her, and two different type of harmonies. Now, for first, let's see the main one. Without the effects, sounds like this.
No love for the bitter hearts.
So I didn't really like them like this way, so I needed to mix a lot. First, I added an equalizer to remove all of the low frequencies and to add some of the heights. Then I added a de-esser to remove the harsh frequencies. After, I added an OTT, a frishet, to add some sparkles to add this crispy sound on the vocals. Then another compressor, the glue. Then I have two effects, an Echo Boy and a Valhalla Vintage Verb that are both automated, you can see here. And it was to fill some empty spaces.
No love for the bitter hearts. Not for you.
And also, I automated them before the drop.
My eyes for the rest of my days.
Yep. That's all for the mains. Now let's see for the first pair of harmonies, which together and without the vocals sounds like this.
Our love's running over time, feeding a flame.
So they are mixed the same way, only they are separated for the two different sides. So yeah, I have an equalizer to remove the lows and a little bit of the heights too, an OTT, another de-esser, and the stereo enchanter to the separator. So with the effect, it sounds like this now. And yeah, and there's also a little differencer to more naturalizing them. Now let's see the other harmonies, which sounds like this.
Our love's running over time, feeding a flame.
Same for the others, they are mixed the same way, but they are separated. So we have an equalizer to reduce all the lows, an OTT, another vintage verb for a reverb, and the stereo enchanter for the separation. And with the effects, it sounds like this. So basically that's all I did for the vocals, but before sending back to PLV, I wanted to add a personal touch to them. I wanted to fill the space because it was necessary for the emotions of the track. So I took two different background vocals that I added in the verse. They sound like this. So they are both from a pack, if I remember, and I didn't do a lot. I only added a reverb, a big reverb, so it sounds like this. Yeah, maybe you don't really hear them a lot, but in the track it helps, definitely. So all the different vocals together sounds like this.
No love for the bitter hearts. No trust has been enough for you.
Thank you, Nois. Now let's dive into the final FL Studio project for the instrumental. So the first thing that I do every time I start a song is to get the chord progression laid down first and then get the vibe overall of the song. So for this one, that's what I did as well. And what I do is I just put the vocals on loop and I just try by ear to just come up with the chord progressions that match the vocals. So for this one, this is what I found. So for this chord progression, I have two pianos. I have a piano classic like Yamaha from Kizon Classic and a soft piano from Labs. I chose those two pianos because I really wanted something soft and emotional to just get into the vibe of the song. If we take a look at how they're mixed, they're both going into different mixer tracks, and I usually start always with a fruity balance to get the gain or volume how I want it. And then I use a parametric EQ to remove the low frequencies and some of the highs that I didn't want in this case. Then I added some fresh air, which is some saturation to get this nice crisp and bright sound on the piano. And then Rough Rider, which is a compressor to really make it tight. The other one, the soft piano, is pretty much the exact same thing, so just maybe a bit different in the treatment of the EQ and maybe not the same parameter for fresher, but pretty much the same treatment. So once I had the chords, I needed to get the vibe of the song first. This is something that I always do first to really get into the vibe of the song. So the first thing I do after this is work on the ambience, which are going under the track. And I started with this tonal ambience loop. I also added some rain. And I have those transitions. And I also added some of those ambience shots. So everything together up until now sounds like this. And this really allows me to get the vibe of the song and know where I want to go with the song. So up until now, I really like this. But this was quite empty, so I started to add some more stuff. And one thing that I did is in between the chord progressions, the chords are quite long, so I needed to fill up those empty spaces with something, and I chose some bells. So for the bells, I used Iota Mini, which is a free little plugin. I used the one keys, and for their mix, I have the parametric EQ as well to remove the low frequencies and remove some of the highs that I didn't want in this case. Fresh air, as always, for some saturation and like bright, crispy, dreamy vibe. I also put the bells a little bit more on the side for the stereo, and I also used Pancake to animate them a little bit, just to give it some more space. Now I knew from the vocals that I wanted to go for something quite like deep and mysterious. So I wanted and I decided to add some low frequencies with a sub and a res as soon as the beginning of the breakdown. You might not hear that if you're on a phone, but if you have speakers or headphones, you'll probably hear it. So for the sub, I just used a preset that I made myself on Serum that I use pretty much all the time. It's nothing fancy, just a basic sub. But what I really like to do is to add a respace with the sub, just to add some more harmonics and frequency to the sub. For the respace, I also used a preset that I made myself on Serum, and it's just a basic res that sounds like this. And along with the sub, it just adds a bit more tone to it. So if we take a look at the mixing, which is really important for the sub and the res, the sub, I EQ it exactly in the frequencies that I want it to be, so probably under 100 or 120 hertz. And for the res, I do the opposite, where I cut everything under 100, 120 and I keep what's above it. This way they can both have their place in the mix and sit well together. Otherwise, for the sub, I just added some camel crusher for some distortion and some OTT in the Reese, but that's it. So after this, I wanted to add a bit more to it to start filling up the atmosphere a little bit. And I decided to go with some strings. I really wanted to go for something very emotional, and I thought strings would go perfect for this type of song. So for the strings, I used the same chord progression as the piano, but just chose a strings sounds that sounded like this. I chose the strings from Flex, which I really like. It's the all strings slow. For the mixing of the strings, I EQ'd them as usual to remove the low frequencies and a little bit of the highs. Then I use stereo enhancer to put them on the sides as well. 3D balance is just to gain staging a little bit. And then I used another EQ to remove a little bit more of the mid-low frequencies because otherwise it was getting my mix to feel muddy. After this, I continued to fill up the atmosphere by adding some pads to it, which sounded like this. The pad is a preset that I found on a free pack for Serum, and I just EQ'd it a little bit and put it a bit more on the sides. So now we're entering the pre-build part, as I called it, because the arrangement on the vocals was a bit different. But I needed to have some evolution and some variations happening in the instrumental. So for example, I changed the chord progression for the pianos. It's a different one that I adapted to the vocals and looks like this. And also the bells, I decided to, using the same preset sound, just to go for a arpeggio to put back in the mix. Just to have something different happening in the back. I also decided to add some chopped chords to add some, starting to build the energy. So the chopped chords are a preset that I found on Serum in a free pack again. I think I tweaked it a little bit real quick in the FX. But in the mix, I think removed quite a lot of some high frequencies just to have it just back in the mix, just to be here to add a little bit of energy, but not to be so much hearable. I added some OTT and Shaperbox, which is the sidechain. Now I needed to add some drums as well. So in the breakdown, I just introduced 2 loops, which were a clock ticking sound. And just this loop that I found on Splice. Then, when the pre-build arrived, I wanted to introduce some more drums and some more rhythm to start building the rhythm up to the build-up. So what I did is I found multiple loops that I chopped to keep just the parts that I wanted and then did my own drum loop with it. So here I had a little kick, here a little drop sound, and some percussion around here. And if you add everything together, they sound like this. Then I introduce some more sound at some point to just keep it interesting. So what I did as well is that I put all these drums on a bus in the mixer to remove the high frequencies, to have a cutoff, like a filter cutoff, so they open as the song progresses. That's this automation here, and it sounds like this. Alright, so now we're coming on into the drop. I will explain the build-up right after because it's just composed mainly from the elements of the drop. So for the drop, the first thing I did was to choose the superstars. I also used a different chord progression to match better the drop that I wanted and also to keep it more interesting and have some variations. So the super saws sound like this. And as you can see, there is quite a heavy sidechain in it, which I did myself manually using Fruity Balance. So what I did is everything that I needed to be sidechained is linked to this bus here that has the Fruity Balance sidechain on it. So the super saws were like 5 layers, mainly serum and maybe vital somewhere, but mainly serum. Unfortunately, I can't for some reason show you the exact sound of each. My FL Studio is bugging at the moment, but that's how they sounded overall. And what I do when I layer my saws is I'm trying to take different sounds that complement each other and fill the whole spectrum. So for the mixing side of it, I removed the low frequencies. I added some OTT and Camel Crusher and another OTT. And then another EQ to shape a bit more the sound how I wanted it. I also here removed a little bit of the mids and low mids. It was to remove the muddiness of the saws. And then this is just the automation in the build-up, and the Fruity Balance is just for gain staging. So I also kept a piano arpeggio that I put in the back in the drop, which sounds like this. Then the leads. The leads sounds like this. So what makes the leads, I think, interesting in this case is I sidechained them the exact same way that I sidechained everything else. And it's actually the first thing that I did. The first thing that I did was the chords and my leads. And my melody was using the sidechain to make the melody. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention. And for the leads, I used 2 presets from Serum. The first one sounded like this. And the second, this one. For their mix, I just used the Fruity Balance to gain staging, the EQ to remove the low frequencies and also remove some harsh frequencies that I didn't like and was hurting my ears. Some fresh air to add some gentle, like crispy saturation, more distortion with the decapitator, some OTT, some supermassive, which is some reverb, which is I think quite heavy, and then some more Fruity Balance for gain staging. Then I also added the strings from the breakdown just to fill up more like the sound. We also added some guitars that Nois did, so he sent me those. So we sidechained them to the same sidechain, and I think it was really helping with the energy. Then the sub is the exact same one from the beginning, but just sidechained. And then we have the bass, which is pretty heavy. So still the same sidechain to the same. And I wish I could show you how I made this one, but for some reason I can't have the layers again. But it's the same 4 presets from Serum that I found in free packs. And what I do when I layer is I just try to find something that sound in the vibe that I wanted. So this one I really wanted something like, like something like this. I don't know if it's a good impression, but you get it. And I also tried to get like some higher and mids and low frequency ones so they really fit the whole spectrum. And to show you the mix that I did on them, so I removed the low frequencies under 100 because it's covered by the sub. Then I added some OTT. This EQ is to remove a bit of the higher frequencies that I didn't need. And then some decapitator for saturation, distortion, sorry. Rough Rider for some heavy compression, And then this is just the automation of the build-up as well. And I think that's it for the instruments in the drop. So let's see the drums. So for the drums, let's start with the kick, which is this one. So I have two kick, I have this one which is a bit lower, and this one which I called it top. And together they sound like this. After I added a snare which is composed of 4 snares, so this is the first one, second, and together they sound like this. Something important in future bass as well is the reverse kick. Then I added some hi-hats, which is just a loop from Splice. Then also for the energy, I put some crashes and rides every beat. I also have this reverse crash that I put just a little bit before the crash just to add with some energy. Then in between I put a lot of drum fills just to fill up the space a little bit. What I did for the drum fills as well is that I panned them a little bit so they could like run from one side to the other, just to add some space. And then I wanted to accentuate the like the release of the drop in some parts, so I added those brass shots. And after this, it was just a question of adding a lot of downlifters and white noise and transitions everywhere. So I have all these cymbal transitions. I have some impact. And then I have the downlifters and uplifters. What I did as well is I used a growl. I used 2 actually. I just thought that with the brass shots, it was really helping the release of the drop. And now that I had this all done, it was just a matter of connecting the breakdown to the drop, which was with a build-up. And literally I took all the instruments that I had from the drop and did a cutoff filter automation mostly. But yeah, that's pretty much for it. So once we had the whole first part of the song, we just copy-pasted everything for the second part and started to add some variations that I'm gonna show you now. We also used this plucky guitar, like muted plucky guitar. So for this one, it was a bit complex. It's a sample that I found on Splice, but it wasn't in the right key, so I had to separate them, like chop it, to every time change the sample to a new key, like by changing the semitone. As you can see here, I adapted them all. And I also duplicated them, so this one's gonna be the right side and this one's gonna be the left side. So yeah, we just wanted to add this to add something different in the second breakdown, so it wouldn't be the same. Another thing I did compared to the first breakdown is to have a little break at some point in between, before going to the build-up, which is just here, these 4 bars. I just removed all the drums and pretty much all the instruments, except the piano and the pad.
Don't think it's in my head. I'll move on instead.
And then everything back. And start to build the energy. Now for the last drop, I wanted to double the drop, as it is something that is done quite often, but I thought it was going to be too repetitive with the melody, so I wanted to try something different, where I just tried something where it's the same elements, same drop, but just more stripped down and more calm and emotional. So for this, I just started to filter a few things like the super saws, the arpeggio, same for the leads. Same for the guitars as well, just a little bit for the strings. And then I added just a basic piano sound. So something just more calm and emotional, just this nice piano. I also started to filter the drums too, maybe even the FX. I really started to filter down everything up to the outro. And also to give it more something more unique, I also took the vocals from the chorus, I think, and I just EQ'd them to filter them. And I also took some of the background vocals and reverse vocals that Nois did and just put them in the drop, just to add even more emotions to it. Now, one thing I want to mention as well is some EQ filter automations that I used in the drop, where at the end of the first 8 bars of the drop, I cut off everything. I put this on the master to really cut off the whole instrumental and have this effect. What I did as well on the master is in the build-up, I automated the volume and the stereo. So what I do is in the build-up, I put it a bit more mono, and I just open it until the drop, so the drop release feels even bigger. And same with the game, with the volume, I just put the drop a bit louder, 1 dB, something like this. This one also is the Titanium Bastard. It's just to push the low frequencies, the lower frequencies, which I thought was missing a little bit in my drop. So I just automated this one, so there's more low frequencies in the drop and have more impact. But I wanted it less on the breakdown, so I just automated this in the song. And then one thing I forgot to mention as well is the transitions. So for the transitions, I used mostly the cymbal transition and the impact. And I pretty much put them every time I go from one part to another of the song, just to help the listener go from one part to the other. So that's it for this track. Now you know how everything has been done. Thank you, Nois, for collabing with me and recording the vocals part. I really hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned a few things. And if so, don't forget to like this video or share it with a friend. It really helps me out a lot. Now that's it for me today. The next video that I will be releasing is the release of my cover of Lonely from Justin Bieber, so I hope to see you there. In the meantime, you can watch these videos where I break down more of my songs, so keep learning and I'll see you in 2 weeks.